Why is a buyer's agent so important? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah. It's the Bitter Realtor Podcast. We're talking about all things Los Angeles real estate. If it's got four walls and a roof, we're talking about it bitterly. Welcome back to the Bitter Realtor Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Rockenstein, and still riding shotgun on this real estate journey. I don't know why. Scott Goldman.
Hello, bitter people.
Today's topic is such a great and important one. Why have a buyer's agent?
Why indeed, Joey? Why indeed?
But before we get to that, let's talk about some listings that we have, Scott.
Let's do. You go first.
Great. I have a listing in Valley Village. You may have heard of it. 4930 Bluebell Avenue. It's a 2,200 square foot, 4-bedroom, 3-bed house. It's on an 8,100 square foot lot.
Ooh, nice size.
But the amazing part is on a cul-de-sac and on a long private driveway. I mean, it's great. Family-oriented neighborhood. It's wonderful. We're listed at 1.7. This is a steal. I mean, anything under $2 million in Valley Village is getting eaten up. Anything else is above $2 million. So you guys, you're going to want to see this.
And you've also, the owner's done some nice upgrades as of recently.
They have,
so.
yeah. They've updated the kitchen. They've updated bathrooms. They've actually put in some new systems like a tankless water heater. They put in a new 200 amp electric panel. So things are good.
Excellent. My turn?
What about it?
I've got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in Encino at 5460 White Oak. Unit D205, 990 square feet, super clean.
Love it.
My co-listing agent here.
It's a good spot. I mean, in Encino for a condo, I mean, for this price point, how much is it?
$299,000.
That is a steal.
Yes, and everything is starting to really take good shape in this entire complex, so now would be the time to make a move.
Why are things taking shape?
Well, the HOAs let things go a little long, as we both know, and that's been a bit of a challenge for some of our buyers.
Of course.
But it looks like interest rates are starting to come back down, or at least get steady, and this is great value. $299,000, heart of Encino, right near the 101 freeway. You can't go wrong.
I mean, I would say that in Encino, HOAs are anywhere from $650 all the way up to $1,000.
Somewhere in there.
Depending on where you are, and you're not going to get that many amenities for some of those. And the Encino Spa, I know, for example, is pricey for the HOA.
Indeed.
But our place has amenities.
What we'll do is we'll put a link to the video that Joey did for the property at the end of this video.
It's great. It's a little walkthrough. You're going to love it.
Let's get to our topic, shall we?
Buyer's agent. Isn't that kind of redundant?
Yes.
Like, you should just have an agent in general. Like, I don't know. Okay, the reason why I feel like this topic is important, Scott, is because of everything that's been going on with the NAR, of course.
Yes.
We've been talking about it, ad nauseum.
We mention it at just about every show.
Right. So I think that realizing that having representation is now more important than ever.
Indeed.
Why?
Well, because I think if you, especially as a buyer, if you wander onto a property that you're interested in, and one thing you and I have talked about is buyers are very savvy now. They have access to a lot of tools.
Correct.
And they'll go ahead and look at a property whether they've got an agent or not. But typically what happens is they show up at that property for sale. There's already a listing agent there. And the listing agent says, oh, well, if you don't have representation, I'll be happy to represent you. Or not represent you. And then the buyer's on their own. This happens a lot in leasing deals, and unfortunately, the person or persons who end up on the shorter end of that stick are the buyers.
Now keep in mind too, like, you can have the listing agent represent you as a buyer, but the listing agent's fiduciary duty falls to the seller. That's whom they represent. So you're not really going to get that much as far as having somebody on your side if you had somebody like me or Scott representing you as the buyer.
There are some exceptions. If I have a client who's a buyer who's come to me and said, Scott, I'm looking for a $2 million property, and I happen to have a $2 million property listed, it's very nice for me to put this deal together. What I'm discussing on the other side of that is the buyer showed up with absolutely no representation, which I find to be a problem.
Absolutely. So
And probably I would contact Joey to say, listen, can you represent this buyer in the transaction? I
correct.
think that's a better fiduciary way of handling it. Fiduciarily.
Yeah, we'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, maybe so.
So let's talk about some of the reasons why, having an agent represent you as a buyer
Absolutely.
is important. I would say one of the ones is like you really need to go down what your needs versus your wants are in a property. Like, do you need to have a pool? Do you need to have a certain school district that you need to live in? Like
A good example is people like Lanai School District.
correct, which is outstanding in Encino. So great school district. So these are things that are non-negotiables versus like things like wants, like you want to have like renovated kitchens and bathrooms, or
Tennis court.
right? If it has an ADU, like or
Pickleball court.
there we go. I mean, if you have a house that has a pickleball court, you're on top of the world.
Basketball court.
Yes. So these are things that a buyer's agent can help you sort through and kind of like filter out what you are looking for online to help make your journey a little bit easier.
A courtyard. Sorry. So when you're listening to your client's needs and wants, especially your buyer's needs and wants, it helps us get your buyer focused, helps us to find the property that they're actually looking for. So when we talk about finding the right property, it could be so many different things: area, price, size. All these things they come into play.
All the above. I mean, and I think it's so important, even nowadays, for a buyer to be hyper focused on what they're looking for, because you can't be so spread out where like you're looking in so many different areas. Like I've had buyers where they're looking on the city side in the valley,
Yeah.
up in the northern valley, and it's like, no, we need to focus on the areas that you really want to live and then get hyper focused on the property itself.
And what's nice for us is we've got the tools to help that happen. You and I have dealt with buyers and sellers, but buyers will typically say, oh, well, I found this house online, or I found that house online. We go and look it up in our listing service and we see the house isn't even available, or it's under contract.
That happens a lot.
Right, because the listing services on the internet are a little bit behind. The information is not flushed out all the time. And one thing that I don't think buyers quite get is that as agents who belong to a regional, we are bound by certain rules to update these listing services within a certain time period. So
Now, would you say agents follow these rules?
I would say that if they don't, they get fined. Usually the particular regional, mine happens to be the Southern Regional, they'll fine you, but they'll waive the fine the first time. You don't want to get fined. And a lot of agents will fly right underneath the radar on
Right.
it. So like, for example, quick example, the contract has been accepted, the property's now under contract, but the listing agent didn't change the status.
So it's still active.
Shows that it's still active. That's to the seller's advantage, because now the seller is still taking on offers, and it looks like to the world that the property's still available. Not great for the buyer, because the buyer would like to see that the deal is going through. So those are the kinds of rules that we are bound by on the listing services, not the case with the online services.
So it's sort of a sign of good faith that the listing agent is going to change the status from active to under contract.
Good faith is a good term, yes.
I mean, as the buyers show signs of good faith by putting their initial deposit in to get escrow started.
Absolutely, and I like to change the status. I like to know that the property I've listed is under contract.
Right, you're a status changer.
I am very quick
He's
on
known
this
in the
thing.
industry for that.
Really?
Yeah, sure.
good, okay.
Scott, status changer Goldman.
We're also here to negotiate on your behalf.
I think that's one of the most important things that people don't realize.
Probably the most important.
Yeah. So you need somebody who's going to negotiate on your behalf. Like what we were talking about earlier when saying that the listing agent's fiduciary duty is to the seller, they're not really going to negotiate for what the buyer is that wants that they're representing. Versus if you have somebody who strictly is your agent, they're going to go into it and find out, for example, like, are there any other offers in hand? Like, what are the comps for the area? Are they overpriced? Are they priced competitively? And then kind of like going from there, like, is the house done? As you know, is it ready? Is it turnkey? Does it need work? Things like that. So the negotiations start with the initial offer, and you need somebody who's going to be able to say, look, they already have offers on the table. They already have, they already have like this number. I'd advise you, if you really wanted, to come in maybe a little bit higher. Or if they don't have offers, maybe you can come in a little bit lower and kind of go from there. But the idea is you need somebody on your side looking out for your best interests.
I mean, it's exactly correct, because to be completely on point, this buyer's agent needs to open a relationship or a dialogue with this listing agent and really find out if there's other offers on the table. Really find out what's the number that the seller really wants, what's realistic. I think one thing that you and I are particularly good at is, let's put ourselves on the other side.
Correct.
Let's really try to get into the psyche of that other agent or that other entity, more specifically, that's making the purchase or making the sale. What's fair? So I like to give things equal time as far as that goes. Obviously, understanding purchase price is key. Inspection. If you don't have somebody on your side in inspection,
you're screwed.
Yeah, this listing agent could say, "Oh, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Never mind the cottage cheese and the leaky stains and the mold. It's all fine. Don't worry."
Right. So that's another thing, though, because I think a lot of people don't realize that there is a possibility of 3 times to negotiate in an escrow transaction. So there's the initial offer, there's inspections, and there could be an appraisal that doesn't come in. So that would be another negotiating point. But inspections is...
Cover those again, because you went through them really fast. There are 3 different points to negotiate the offered price. Please go ahead.
So offer price, inspections, and the appraisal. So those are 3 times when negotiations can happen to get you a better price, to get you credits. But I think like inspections, I mean, from our previous episode that we did about that, like, it's so important because things can go wrong so quickly.
Things can go sideways very fast, especially when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. People can get cold feet. An inspection can really check you out of a
Make or break it.
transaction. Yeah,
it's going to make or break that deal. That's why.
Look at the episode from 2 weeks ago. We really dug in. So yeah,
I still have PTSD from that. Major anxiety. I've had major anxiety from that. But like, you need to keep things moving forward, and that's what a good agent is going to help the buyer do. Like,
no doubt.
To stay hyper focused and to help manage expectations, because this is an emotional journey. So you don't want to like base your decisions off of those emotions. The emotion that you should focus on is your love for the property. Like, the reason why you wanted to put in an offer in the first place, that's what you need to stay focused on.
Right. I mean, price is going to be important to both sides, but I guess what you're saying is, I wouldn't make an offer on a property I didn't absolutely want.
That's my problem with some buyers nowadays, and I've worked with some of them, where we put in an offer and then I come back and check in with them like, oh yeah, I like it. But I'm like, so you don't love it? Well, it's good enough.
Yeah,
like,
good enough. There's a lot of settling.
Because good enough is not going to get you across the finish line. Good enough is going to give you reasons to not like the property as you go down the journey through inspections and all that.
Great point. We hear of so many properties with 15, 18, 20 offers because there's 15 or 18 different people really want the property. And the people who really want the property are going to step way up to get it.
Right.
It happens. A property just sold in Malibu for $210 million.
Amazing.
The guy paid $75 million, the guy from Oakley. He more than doubled. It's like this guy with the Oakley can't lose. It's an amazing, insanely, gorgeously gigantic property, and you know what? The guy who bought it really wanted it because he paid several $1 million over the asking price.
Not just several million.
Yeah, I mean there was really no property wasn't actually on the market. This was one of those deals that was just
right.
like.
like an
I want to sell my house. Oh, really? I might want to buy that house. What are you asking? Oh, about 190 million. Great, I'll give you 210.
So I would go out on a limb and say that just wasn't just good enough. Like they actually loved it.
The guy who bought it really loved it.
I would hope so.
It's kind of far out there too. It's past Trancas, which is past where I live, which is far.
So another thing I think that is really important to realize too, with that your agent's going to do for you, is you're going to have like a ton of paperwork that's going to be coming in during this transaction. I mean, like a shit ton. Okay, so
I think I'm going to exceed the frame here.
Right, we're going out of frame. Yeah. So, namely, like the disclosures, and you need to know exactly what you're signing and initialing. You need to know what is going on. Like, Scott, what are some of the disclosures that come up?
Oh, hi, did somebody die in the house? Did somebody drown in the pool in the house? Was there a fire? There's no such thing as a Carfax. There's no house fax.
Good point. So there's no like transaction.
There's no history. There's no fox.
Yeah, right.
Says, hey, you might want to check out the fact that there's mold up there. So that's disclosures.
Right. These things need to be disclosed in the.
Somebody twisted an ankle on the pickleball court.
Right, and that'll be in the seller property questionnaire or the transfer disclosure statement.
Yes, and quick anecdote. Somebody very close to me bought a house, and the people didn't properly disclose the fact that somebody had died in the pool, had drowned, a kid.
Within the past 3 years.
There you go. Right. It happened almost a year before they sold the house. As a matter of fact, it's why they sold the house.
Wow.
And had they told the buyer this, the buyer would have not purchased the house. The buyer heard it from one of the neighbors, which is not. Here's the thing: if there's any question about whether you should disclose or not, disclose.
And the reason for this is, like Scott just mentioned, like these are material facts that would make you, the buyer, not want to go through with the sale of the property. It's going to influence you. It's going to change your mind for good reason too. I mean, these things.
Nobody wants the bad juju.
Well, absolutely.
That somebody drowned in the pool.
I showed a property to a buyer in Studio City, and I didn't find out until much later in the day that the husband had hung himself in the ADU. And apparently, like this is like the suicide house in Studio City that I actually had no idea about, but we didn't find out until like the neighbors told us about it, like when we were at the open house. So that's like a huge thing. That's like, I think that should be, mentioned right away.
That is something that you and I might refer to as a red flag.
Right. And interesting note to that, my buyer works as a healer, and she works with energy, and she kept saying to me, like, there's something off with the ADU.
Oh, she
felt
picked it up.
Yeah.
Did she get the same sense when she was on the tennis court?
No.
Or the pickleball court?
She doesn't pick up the pickleball court energy. No.
I'm really stuck on this whole. I'm sorry. I'll stop.
I know what to get you for your birthday this coming year.
Don't.
But so things like that need to be disclosed, and that's when an agent is going to help you filter through all those things to make sure that this is the property that you want, these things are wrong with it, and then also we're going to go back and negotiate some money to come back to you because of those problems that are with the house, because you don't want to inherit problems.
And on that point, because we've been doing this for a while, we also have quite the network of professionals that we can work with. So we'll be the ones to help you get the inspector.
Correct.
We'll be the ones to show up when the inspector's there. And when the inspector says, I need a plumber here, we'll provide the name of that plumber or that electrician. So there's more than just, negotiating the price or making sure you get the right credits.
Finding the house.
We have the professional network. We also have access to other agents, not just in our Coldwell Banker network, but across the whole spectrum of agents.
All over LA.
So we do have there's a lot of connection there, and it's something that, I think when we work with buyers, it's become infinitely important to have them sign a buyer's agreement, which our brokerage now requires.
Correct. So that's kind of like the movement of the real estate landscape, is that, the buyer-broker agreement is going to be one of three now important contracts in real estate.
That's right.
So, but let's...
We're not even supposed to look stuff up for you unless we have this contract.
Correct. But I think that's talking about value is what we bring to it. Like, I really pride myself on, being able to find things like maybe off market, by being able to establish relationships quickly with agents who maybe I don't know that well. But also, I know a lot of agents across the board. So it's always nice to know that I can pick up the phone and make a phone call and find something for my clients that maybe wasn't available in the MLS.
Exactly right. I mean, if it's something off market, you're not going to see it on any of the online listings because that's just not how it works. So, hey, I'd have you as my Sherpa. Not to the Himalayas or anything,
but that's what this episode is about, the buyer's Sherpa.
That's it. I think that is if we boil all the water out of this episode's walk, we're left with Sherpa.
If you have any questions about things that we talked about in this episode of why having a buyer's agent is so important, you guys can reach out to us on social media, Scotty Goldman, Joey Rockenstein, and you can also email us or call us. I'm going to put all of our contact information in the show notes.
I'll say my number anyways, 310-963-7867, 5460 White Oak Avenue, number D205.
I'm 310-210-5958. Don't forget about 4930 Bluebell Avenue in Valley Village is waiting to be yours.
Beautiful house.
For Scott Goldman, I'm Joey Rockenstein. This is the Bitter Realtor Podcast. Why am I bitter? Because I'm a realtor.